Police officers, what's the dumbest thing you've ever seen a criminal do or say? So my personal favorite was when a bloke on a motorbike swerved in front of our squad car and crashed. We hopped out, picked the bike up off him, it was penning his leg, and asked, "You alright mate?" To which he replied, "Of course I'm alright, what do you mean?" "Well, you just fell off your bike mate." "No I didn't." He just kept insisting that there was no way he could have crashed, and it must have been someone else. I am not a police officer, but I called the cops on my roommate in college because she tried to attack me and she wouldn't cooperate with the cops, so she got cuffed and was screaming about how she was gonna beat my butt. They were like, "Yeah, you were gonna beat her butt?" And she was agreeing LMAO. In court later the judge asked her, "So you think it's okay to beat someone's butt if they turn your TV off when you're not there?" And she nodded and said, "Yes I do," and the judge just deep sighed. Friend who is an officer told me this one a little bit ago. He was driving near where a known car thief lived, so he stops by SUV in the driveway with no tags, walks up, runs the VIN, stolen. Now the property had a house on it, and then out back, a small mother-in-law suite where said thief lived. Officer walks out back, knocks, and then hears a car door. Officer starts running, engine starts, and yup. Thief is driving away in the stolen SUV. Officer knows where he ditches stolen cars at, so has an officer stake out that area. Sure enough, 2 hours later the SUV rolls up with a Jeep following it. SUV driver wipes down the dash, wipes down the outside door handle and gets in the Jeep. Officer pulls them over and arrests them both. Why both? The Jeep is stolen. Officer runs her license, send another officer to her address, and guess what? She had a stolen car at her place too. 3 stolen cars recovered, 2 people in jail, all because one officer decided to stop by a thief's last address. All because one officer decided to stop by a thief's last address. Imagine how many changes in how many people's lives that set off, butterfly effect and all that. I was waiting to report an incident at a local police station when a clearly distraught man came in wheezing and sweating. I wasn't in a rush, so I'll let him go ahead of me. "I've been robbed. They took everything," he exclaimed when he reached the counter. The officer working the desk asked him the usual what, where, why and how sort of questions. The gentleman proceeds to explain that he was a local dealer and he just got robbed of his entire stash while selling to some teens at the local train station. The officer just said that there's not anything they can do about that and it's in his best interest to just leave before more questions are raised, and he incriminates himself further. He was fuming and stormed out of the place, slamming the door behind him. I reached the counter and made an offhand comment towards the office, "That must be a first for you." Apparently not. Apparently drug dealers often come in to report theft of their illicit substances. I'm confused as to why they don't arrest them when they confess like that. Not my story, but my police officer friend's. He had gone in to arrest someone for dealing drugs. He was in full uniform, whilst someone else had already been in there undercover. The drug dealer looks at the undercover police officer and says, "You're undercover." "Yes, well done." He looks at my uniformed friend and says, "You're undercover too." He was not. Then he looks at someone else, not a police officer, and says, "And you?" Guy responds with, "How am I an undercover police officer? I just bought drugs off of you." And that's how they made an unexpected arrest at that raid. What a twist. 2 idiots for the price of 1. Not a police officer, but my father was a 911 dispatch operator. My dad was working one night and he gets a call from a man who is obviously drunk. "Dad, 911. What is your emergency?" "Drunk, yeah UHH. I think I just heard a red car crash." "Dad, you heard a red car crash?" "Drunk, yeah." "Dad, okay. Police are on their way." Click. My dad finds out later that this dude was driving drunk and crashed his car not far from his house. Guy decides to get out of his car, stumble home, and dial 911 to report the fact that he heard a car crash. In his drunken mind, he figured he'd report the crash as someone who heard it and he'd get off somehow, but he had to specify the color, because apparently a red car crashing sounds different than a blue car crashing. Not a cop. Student paramedic here. Once went to a family with a 2-year-old with difficulty breathing. Walked into the house to find 4 people and the parents smoking weed with the baby in the room. Baby was crying and coughing, spluttering. Couldn't believe my eyes. My mentor swiftly rang for police backup and we filled out some safeguarding paperwork concerns. Pretty sure they arrested them on scene for neglect. Dad's a detective. Had a murder case where a dog walker found a severed head in a park. Over the rest of the morning they found a full set of chopped up body parts around that park. A trail of blood led from each part, and they followed them all the way back to a nearby house. In through the door and up the stairs to a room covered in blood with a guy asleep in a bed. It turns out this guy had got drunk with a friend, had an argument, killed him, chopped him up and hid his body parts in the park before passing out back at the house. Police caught him literally red-handed. Apparently he was really confused how they got him so quickly. I read a theft suspect a Miranda rights to which she stated in a recorded interview, "I'm invoking my right to silence and a lawyer because I stole a lot of crap and I don't want to incriminate myself." Suspect was caught for drug possession on the streets, and we were talking to the prosecutor to get a warrant for his house. Somehow, he managed to call his wife without our notice, and as we realized what happened we heard him saying, "Honey, go take the fish out of the fridge." After we've got the warrant and searched his house, there was his fridge full of speed and the plate with fish which his wife had prepared for his return thrown in the trash. I stopped someone who was in the area of a load of theft from motor vehicles. After a bit of questioning I carried out a search and found numerous wallets, phones etc. He claimed that all of the cards were his, all 13 different identities. To be fair, he stuck to his story. He carried it all the way to court going not guilty. Okay then, Mr. Jones, you are under arrest for 12 counts of theft. Mr. Fletcher, you are also under arrest for 12 counts of theft. Mrs. Rodriguez, you are under arrest for 12 counts of theft. Stopped a lady for speeding 15 miles per hour over the limit. I asked what her reason could be for going so fast. She said, "I live here. You can't give me a speeding ticket. I live just down the street. I live here. This is unbelievable. I live here." I was pulled over for doing 65 miles per hour in a 30. Honestly didn't realize it. I had just left my dad's new house, new area, and it was like 11 PM. Cop asked me why I was going so fast. I said I honestly have no excuse, I missed the speed limit signs I guess, and I was let go with a warning. I'm cop. You can't arrest me, I'm in a church. I have sanctuary. Alright, you have 40 days to either submit to the authorities and face trial, or go into exile by the shortest route and never return without the king's permission. If you should attempt to leave the church proper within this 40 days, you will be broken upon the wheel. All the people from To Catch a Predator. NBC has online transcripts, and they still come up with the stupidest excuses. Chris Hansen. Sir, what else could you mean by asking the girl if she was a virgin and then telling her you wanted to penetrate her anally? Predator. I'm just here to watch football, man, she told me she was 18. Hansen. In the transcripts you clearly say she's 13. You could get in trouble for this and ask her not to tell anyone. We need an entire subreddit just for those transcripts. I used to work in arraignments and a guy was entering his not guilty plea and confirming that he was true billed, that they have the right name on his charging instrument. After that the court asks if you can afford an attorney and asks some quick questions before giving you paperwork to request a court-appointed attorney. This guy was booked on unlawful use of a motor vehicle Class E, basically stealing car stereos. The judge asks him if he's employed. He says no. The judge asks him what he does for money. "Oh, I steal car stereos at rest stops and sell them." Motor vehicle stop. License and registration please. Proceeds to lean over to the passenger seat, scoop up a handful of lomine and tries to put it in the officer's hand. He was locked up for the fourth offense. To this day I still wonder if he thought he was passing his correct paperwork or if the Chinese food was some sort of peace offering. Not a police officer but a witness to a crime who had to give evidence in court. Basically witnessed a girl crashing her car and barrel rolling it into a tree. She was clearly drunk. The fireman arrived after 10 minutes. Her car had leaked petrol everywhere. Then her husband shows up on foot and tries to calm her down, followed by her mother in a car and the police. She tried to claim that she wasn't the one driving, even though no one else had been in the car. In court a year later, she said her mother had been driving, the one who showed up in her own car 10 minutes after the crash. She also punched an officer in the face and was pepper sprayed, but that's a whole other story. Needless to say, she was found guilty. What trash, claiming her mother was the one driving. Dispatcher, had a guy call in and tell us that he's currently violating the protective order by being with his ex who is pregnant by him. Wants us to call the judge and get it dismissed so they can go inside the restaurant and eat. Officer is standing next to my partner who answered the call and asks the guys where he is so we can send the judge to him. Guy hangs up. Responded to an apartment complex for a kid eating a corn dog and was stuck on the roof. The FD arrives and gets the kid off the roof. I told the kids why he was eating a corn dog on the roof. His answer was because I threw it up there. His look of done left me speechless. Can't argue with kids' logic. DUI trial. Defendant chooses to represent herself. She tries to introduce evidence during the trial, but is quickly blocked by the prosecution. The judge, maybe taking pity on the flaming train wreck that was this woman's defense, asks to see the evidence. It was a receipt from the bar she left before I stopped her that showed that she purchased 2 large margaritas. Her whole defense was, I couldn't have been drunk after only 2 margaritas. She was found guilty. My initial reason for stopping her was that she drove down an embankment on the side of the road to get to a McDonald's drive-thru. Having worked drive-thru, I must unfortunately report that stone cold sober people will drive over embankments to enter/exit the drive-thru. My friend is sober driving and there's not enough seats, so 2 people offer to go in the boot. On the way she gets pulled over and the officer comes up to the window and asks if she knows why he pulled her over. She says because of the 2 people in my boot. The cop says no, because you failed to indicate at the last intersection. But tell me more about the people in your boot. These are my pants, but those are not my pockets. Can't make this crap up. My ex to the cop who pulled him and his friends over. I'm so freaking high right now. So can I see your driver's license? I don't have one. Then why were you driving? I wasn't, I was traveling. MFW, I'm in a self-driving car and it doesn't pull over for the cop, resulting in a high-speed chase. Second hand story. As I was the victim of burglary, but heard this from the police officer. I saw the guy breaking into my place on a security camera and called them. They managed to arrest the guy while he was still inside packing up my stuff. He was pretty cocky to the police, as that he thought that as he hadn't actually left with his bag of swag, my stuff, that he hadn't committed a crime yet. All he did was broke a window. My grandpa was a cop. He told me a story about how when he was still in uniform filling up his squad car, someone tried to rob him with a knife. Needless to say, that didn't work out for him. Edit. Some people were a bit confused. My grandpa just pulled his gun and arrested the man. Sorry for the confusion. Apparently it went something like this. Robber, give me your wallet. Grandpa, what? Robber, give me your wallet. Grandpa, are you sure you want to do that? Robber, yeah, now hand it over. Grandpa, okay. Pulls gun out. You're under arrest. Robber, shocked face. Drugs are a heck of a drug. My brother is a Detroit cop. Told me this one. They get a call from someone reporting their car was stolen. They show up and it turns out someone had already stolen the tires off the car. Then a different group stole the actual car. They pushed it 2 blocks without tires and left perfect grooves in the street all the way to their garage. Their defense was, but we didn't steal the tires. Detroit, when we rob you, we really rob you. Not a cop but a corrections officer. 2 inmates got into a fight in a hallway. I was the closest to them and only saw the start of the fight out of the corner of my eye. In my report I wrote that I saw the 2 inmates fall to the ground with name on top of other inmate. Later, the hearing sergeant was reading the report to one of the inmates, so they could dispute any facts in the report they felt were untrue or biased. He asked the inmate if they wanted to dispute any facts in my report. The inmate said, yeah, we didn't fall to the ground. I grabbed the other inmate and slammed his butt on the floor. What would have been a simple fighting charge turned into an assault charge. Woman is waiting for her DUI trial in the courtroom. The lawyers and judge are milling around and getting their paperwork in order. Trial starts in 10-15 minutes. The prosecuting attorney asks her if she wants to take the plea deal one last time. She refuses and goes on about how this is unconstitutional and the police and courts are corrupt and how is she going to take her kid to school, blah blah blah. She is starting to cause a bit of scene, yelling, acting like a child, just being generally annoying. Someone in the room gets a whiff of alcohol. She is out on bond, so she can basically be given a PBT at any time for any reason. Judge orders one on her. She registers a 0.226 in court. This woman who is on trial for DUI had the audacity to drive to court drunk and then moan and groan about how she isn't being treated fairly and we're all corrupt and this is unconstitutional. Not only that, but it explicitly states in your bond conditions that you cannot consume alcohol. So I cuff her and bring her to the jail. She's still running her mouth during the walkover. I had nothing to say. I had absolutely zero sympathy for her. I could barely hold in my laughter on the walkover to the jail. My personal winner right here. The confession is my own. Cop, you were going 95 miles an hour. Do you know what the speed limit is? Me. Number. Cop, it's 55 miles per hour. Me. Sorry sir, I thought it was a 65. Not a cop, but I used to read a lot of police reports at my old job. My favorite was a woman who refused a breathalyzer by telling the cop, I won't blow on that, but I'll blow on your dong. In a city near to me, a guy murdered a woman, put her body in a large garment bag, and left her in a vacant lot. Unfortunately for him, he forgot to take the tags with his name and address off the bag from a recent flight. A would-be bank robber wrote his hold-up note and put it into his wallet. He got rattled at the bank and accidentally left his driver's license on the counter when he handed the note to a teller. A third crook just took on more than he could handle and apparently didn't watch the time. He had a long history of grand theft auto and was hospitalized after being badly beaten in the parking lot of a sports area after a lacrosse game. The guy swore up and down that he had no idea why anyone would assault him there. In court, defendant called the judge Your Majesty instead of Your Honor. Honestly, I imagine this happens a fair amount just out of brain blank in an uncomfortable atmosphere. You stumble over a word and a similar common phrase comes out instead. My boyfriend is a police officer. Last week he pulled over a drunk driver who ended up speeding off. Car chase back to his house and drunk guy tells him, I got home. It's okay. You can go now. Drunk guy continues arguing and it's 3 AM, so his family wakes up and his son steps out to the front porch and yells, damn it dad, you freaking idiot. We told you to stop doing this. Haha, can't arrest me. House is base. The serial killer BTK. He used to send taunting letters to the media and to the police about his crimes. He seemingly stopped all activity for around 10 years when he started to communicate again. He asked the police if he could be traced if he sent them a floppy disk and they told him no. He sent them a floppy disk and they recovered data that included his name and his church. He was quickly arrested. Armed robbery. Shop clerk tells the robbers, if you come back at 7:30 PM I will have more money in the register, guys. Robbers leave. Police is standing by at 7:30 PM. Armed robbers return to the store and get arrested. Edit. Very sorry for a few people off by forgetting to mention the not me. But this happened recently in Belgium and it was on the news as explained further by Unitebringer MC. I thought it was still fitting in this thread. My Bill is a cop in a small town. Pulled a car over one night, recognized the kid, smelled weed inside the car, and said, give me the weed and I won't search your car, won't give you a ticket, and you can be on your way. Kid fights him, says he doesn't know what that smell is, there's no weed, and how can I trust that you won't take me to the station if I give it to you. Bill promises again that if he hands him the weed, he will let him go. No questions asked. Kid keeps being a moron. Bill searches the car and finds many more drugs hidden all over, as well as weed. Bill says, alright, let's go to the station. Kid gets upset and says, you said you weren't going to do this. See, I couldn't trust you. I groan and laugh every time I think of that. What a dummy. My bro arrested this girl for DUI. She was so drunk he skipped the field sobriety test. As he walked her to his patrol car, the girl says, wait, you haven't read me my ABCs. Yes, oh, this one is my own. The first time I got pulled over for a random breath test, I was really excited, new driver, and was totally sober. This hot cop comes up to my window and holds out the device and tells me to count to 10. I didn't know there were new breathalyzers without a straw, so I said, oh no, I thought I'd get to blow something. He laughed and my brother, who was in the passenger seat, died of shame. Arrested a guy for shooting H in the parents' room of a shopping center. Walked in while he had the needle in his arm. We stare at each other for a bit. Then he comes out with, "I'm a diabetic." I cuff him. Leave my partner to do the search while I read caution and writes, "Old mate is not diabetic and we know this because he's got 87 prior convictions for use, possession, trafficking drugs." I go through the usual "you do not have to say or do anything" spiel. Then say, "Do you understand these rights?" He's totally cooked on H at this point and he just looks at me and goes, "You want to get dinner tonight?" It's not the worst response I've had to caution and rights though. Not a cop but my brother was. He told me that this one time he took lunch at Popeyes while in uniform except for the hat. Once inside, the cashier started taking his order, then stopped halfway and turned to a co-worker that just walked up. I don't remember exactly what was said, but basically the guy taking my brother's order asks the other guy if he took his weed. The other guy says yes, but he didn't smoke it all and proceeded to hand him over the weed. The guy then says cool, not to worry, that he's got another stash in his car for emergencies like this. My brother then said that he just wanted to eat some lunch. The guys then realized he was the cop. One guy said something like "not again." As my brother started arresting the cashier, he said that he thought my brother was the security guard. So my brother, just trying to make a joke out of it, says, "Oh, you smoke pot with your security guard?" To which the guy says, "No, just my manager and his buddy." But the real funny part was when he asked another employee there if the security guard was around, and the employee said they didn't have one and didn't know what that cashier was talking about. Not an officer, just security. Many moons ago, when in questioning, my cousin told police, "You don't have my fingerprints." I wore gloves. Came in to be voluntarily arrested so he could be interviewed. Decided to bring his M-pipe and M with him. Didn't get charged for what he came in for, but did get charged with possessed drugs and possessed paraphernalia. Witnessed a hilarious one go down. Two kids, I will call one and Carl, getting escorted out of a mall near me. Apparently nothing too bad, just suspect that they had stolen some shoes from a store. While they're being escorted, one tries to rip away from one of the security guards and starts screaming, "If you're gonna handle Emmy, you might as well detain Emmy." So the kids would have just been escorted off property and asked to leave. No ban from the mall or anything, until he then tried to assault the security guard by pushing her and almost throws a punch. The third guard in the case, who I will properly call Goliath, proceeds to basically choke slam this kid into the ground. Cops were then called, kids were arrested and had their crap searched. The second best part, they had proof they purchased the shoes and didn't show their receipt even though they had it. The best part, both the dumbasses had a ton of weed in their bags that the cops found. In my country, it is illegal to drive a bike moped whilst smoking. A friend of mine got pulled over on the short ride from the BUT to his apartment, driving on a small moped, basically a bicycle with a 50cc engine, and cop asked him why is he not wearing a helmet and why is he smoking a cigarette. "Officer, I swear I never smoke while driving. I only smoked when I had a couple of drinks." Copied mine from a previous similar thread. In law enforcement but not a regular cop. Middle of search warrant looking for a bloke. Lots of drug convictions in the past. Found a still burning blunt in the ashtray in the living room, but no sign of the guy in the house. I am 99% sure he is in the roof cavity. I announced to my partner, "I think he is up there. Should we look?" Suddenly the ceiling starts talking. Hear the softest number. Hey, crap. Can they hear me? Nah, it's all good. So my partner said, "Nah man, I didn't hear that guy say we shouldn't look up there." Ceiling replies with, "Sweet. I knew they wouldn't find me." Needless to say, we looked and pulled a very stoned guy out from under the insulation bass. Side note, they make you itchy AF, so be careful choosing your hiding spots when you're stoned. Shower in cold water after messing around with insulation. If you take a warm shower, your pores open up and all that itchy stuff just gets stuck in deeper. It's a really crappy lesson to learn firsthand. Like this video and this good boy will play you a nice song. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.